Okay. Praise, glory, and honor be to the Lord God Almighty, the Lord of hosts, the King of saints, the King of kings, the Most High God, the only true God, the God and Father of Jesus, and the God and Father of everybody who believes, the only wise God, the only true God, the resurrection and the life, who only has immortality, who only can provide immortality. There's no other way to get it, apparently. So here we are at the last part of the Contradictions in the Gospel of Matthew, part 10, starting at Matthew 27, 3 through 10. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, all of a sudden he saw he was condemned, felt guilty. I put that in there, felt guilty, because that's the truth. Felt guilty and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. So I put this here because I'm saying, what in the world was this man thinking? There's something we don't understand about this whole picture. Because what did he think he was doing? He had a conscience, apparently. Because it goes on to saying, I have sinned. Oh yeah, you just figured that out, huh? In that I have betrayed the innocent blood. Well, why did you do it then? So it's contradictory, totally, that the man supposedly had this conscience where he was struck by what he did, yet he still did it. It doesn't make any sense. So, Jesus commanded him to do it. Jesus said, what you're going to do now. Go and do it. Right? So it makes no sense. He was the ultimate fool. He did something, and it's unknown why. What was his motivation? What did he think was going to happen? Because usually a criminal is not going to feel guilty about his crimes or anything. They don't feel guilty. There's no remorse. This guy was like two different people. He went ahead and did that. He took the money from them so that he could supposedly turn them in as if they couldn't find him on their own. He was with them every day in the temple. It was ridiculous. What did he think they were going to do with him? He was as naive as could be. And it says, and he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and left, or departed, it says, and went and hanged himself. He was so guilty about what he did, he actually supposedly hung himself. So it doesn't figure, because I think he was totally in some kind of an imaginary world, a fantasy land mindset, where he thought something else was going to happen. It doesn't make any sense. And the chief priest took the silver pieces and said, it is not lawful to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. I think that's important to notice here, that because I'm going to talk a lot about this, because he's going to quote the Old Testament and like that this was the price of blood. When he quotes the Old Testament, it wasn't the price of blood. It was not. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. I had 2 long conversations with the AI about potter's field. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued. See, it was not a prophecy of Jesus. It was not. Whom they of the children of Israel did value. And they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord appointed me. I just realized it doesn't make any sense. We're not going to see it in, we're not going to see the same last verse in Zechariah. Because Matthew doesn't even know where this was in the Old Testament. It's spoken by Jeremy, otherwise known as Jeremiah. He didn't even know where it was. That's how good he was. In this last verse, and gave them for the potter's field as the Lord appointed me. What is that supposed to mean? As the Lord appointed me. Because it doesn't say that. See, the verse is in Zechariah, not Jeremiah. I'm going to read it. But this is not correct. It was convenient to use that because of the 30 pieces of silver involved. And there is some correlation. You can find a correlation in there, but Matthew doesn't have a clue about it. So here's the verse. It's in Zechariah 11:13. So I went over this whole chapter with the AI extensively. And the Lord said to me, Cast it to the potter a goodly price, that I was priced at of them. Well, there was no money exchange. There was no money exchanged at all on this. So it's like a dream. It's a fantasy land thing. Very strange, like a skit, like a drama, like a TV show. There is no evidence that there was any money given, paid to Zechariah. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. But yet none of this stuff was done in Zechariah. So it's annoying. It's quite amazing, really, that it never happened. I just looked at it again. He called it like prophetic storytelling, like a skit. But it's a prophetic story, yet there's no evidence that it became reality. So I just wrote all this. I did sum it up so I wouldn't forget it. And it does make sense. The first time I talked to him, I got this part. Give it to the pottery makers of the temple. Money needed to make pottery, the vessels, and so forth. You give it to the potter because he needs money to make pottery. But then I wrote, there is no evidence that Zechariah actually got 30 pieces. It was a dream from God. I call it a dream. A prophetic dream, call it. And no death of anyone was involved around it. And it was about the people and God not seeing eye to eye. And a very strange story was told. And then I wrote, and apparently not valuing the care of God. So the money that was paid in that chapter 11, right here, see it, was being paid to God, but that doesn't make any sense either because God doesn't need 30 pieces. But he was like a stand-in. Zechariah was like a stand-in representative. It was being paid to him, but yet it was supposedly being paid to God. And they were treating God like a servant because, as you see in Exodus, right, this is Exodus 21:32, if the ox shall gore a manservant or maidservant, he shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, there it is, and the ox shall be stoned. So I wrote 30 shekels of silver was the price of a killed servant. So it was a price just for a servant. It says if he gored them, and I imagine he killed the ox would have killed the servant. I don't think they would have been injured. It's possible, but I don't think so. I think they would have killed them. That's have one of those horns go into you. Doesn't seem like you'd survive that. Internal bleeding and so forth. Yeah. A serious injury, to say the least. So that's where they get the 30 pieces of silver, because it was a meager price. So the correlation would be that Jesus was treated like a servant, like a rejected servant. Well, he was treated like all he was like a lowly servant. And that's what they would value in God with Zechariah. And they weren't valuing God any more than a servant. But it wasn't the price of blood. And, Jesus is not God. So the correlation falls a little short there. He's the messenger of God. He's the mediator of God. He's the sent one. He's the representative of God. He is the Passover of God. But he is not God. But he was doing the work of God, but God didn't die on the cross. God didn't have to be nailed to a tree, nailed to a beam, a piece of wood for 3 hours. Jesus did. And he didn't, and then Judas did not cast the money to the potter. The Jews did. Well, he threw it down in the house of the Lord. He did throw it down in there, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter where he threw it down, because he was suddenly guilty all of a sudden. All of a sudden he had a conscience. So he must have had one before. So he was under some kind of some people have theorized that he believed that, Judas believed that Jesus was not going to allow himself to be taken. Since he was a miracle worker, he could have easily, all the things that he did, give me a break. Tell me he couldn't have just brought power on and all of them would have been just knocked down and disabled. But no, there had to be 3 hours of torture instead. He was going to be tortured for 3 hours instead. Because, the world needed to be saved. Well, there has been some people saved from certain things. But nobody's been saved from death. And many people who profess Jesus have not been saved from disease. They've professed and they've professed and they have professed. And there are some people, but they've still died from a disease. They've gotten a disease and then they died. And some people haven't been saved from the aliens, from the strange aliens who fly around in these flying saucers and these flying vehicles. And they will abduct people and do experiments on them and play with them like toys. And they've claimed to be Christians big time. A story I'm reading now, and there's like 4 books I found on it. I'm on the second one now. The woman's name is Betty Andreessen. And by far, she's got to be the strangest case that I've ever read. Because she claimed to be a Christian big time. And then she was even speaking in tongues when she was being regressed in hypnosis or being hypnotized. She was even praying to God, and she was speaking in tongues and worshiping God. And then she was, at the same time, she was taken by these little gray beings. A lot of it seems like a dream because she goes into such elaborate stories. It's just mind-boggling. Where she was brought to another world and she saw all these strange things and everything. So she's one of the strangest yet. And there's another one, but I won't go into it. So let me move on. The next verse is Matthew 27:17. This is just a small thing, but I always am interested in talking about it. 17 and 18. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said to them, "Whom would you like that I release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ?" For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. Well, I think that's a lie, that 18. Because they said that we wanted him dead because they had a law, and by that law he should die. And I've talked about this many times, and that was why they felt justified, because it said if anybody came around and had a different doctrine, did signs and miracles and so forth, and was taking people away from the doctrine of Moses, then they should stone him. Now they should have done that. They should have continued. They should have continually tried to stone him, but they did not. Instead, they turned him over to the Romans, which was wrong, but still the law said that he should die. So I wrote under here, there is no evidence that he knew it was for envy. They even said, we have a law that he must die. So that is what he knew. So this is just some interjection of Matthew. There's no verse that said that he knew it was for envy. Now, that's nonsense. That's a lie. Let me get close to the resurrection here. Matthew 27, 55 and 56. And many women were there seeing afar off, which followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among which was Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's children. So I just put these here, this one in the next verse, because they do this in this gospel and they do it in Mark a lot, where they don't even say that the Mary is the mother of Jesus, because in another verse it tells you that two of the children of Mary was James and Joseph. So I think it's an amazing thing when they don't tell you. So once again, they neglected to say that Mary was his mother, mother of Jesus. It's crazy. The 61st verse of the same chapter, and there was Mary Magdalene, and then they just say, the other Mary. So that's what they call the mother of Jesus, the other Mary, sitting over against the tomb, the sepulcher. I find that amazing that they would do that. And it makes sense that Mary, the mother of Jesus, would be going to the grave. It would make sense. People have said it's some other Mary. No, I don't think so. So here we go with the false account in Matthew. These messages wouldn't be complete if I didn't go over this. The false and phony account of the resurrection at the tomb and so forth. The events that happened at the tomb after he died. 28, Matthew 1 through 7. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. Again, they say the other Mary. What other Mary? The mother of Jesus. That's who it was. To the tomb. And there was a great earthquake. The angel of the Lord descended from heaven. No. And came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat on it. No, that's drama. So I wrote, all the other Gospels deny this happened. If this was true, Jesus would have come out then, right? That would make sense. I have more to say on that. His face was like lightning. No. And his clothes white as snow. No such thing happened in the way that they're portraying it. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men. They became as dead men, or they became dead men. Doesn't make any sense. And the angel answered, or spoke, and said to the women, fear not, for I know that you seek Jesus, which was crucified. He is not here, he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where the Lord lay. So I wrote all this stuff below it. Okay, so where is he now? Where's Jesus? Are we to believe Jesus raised from the dead, and then later an angel came by and removed the stone? And I might have added, at the very time that Mary, the two Marys came, okay? I'm gonna go over the account in one other gospel. I could do all four, but I'm not. I'm going to use John. Are we to believe that Jesus raised from the dead and then later an angel came by and removed the stone? If this is true, the other three Gospels give a false account, saying the stone was already rolled away. Okay? So I think this is a fabrication. This is the fabrication out of the four Gospels. The other three are correct, or more correct, because John just says just Mary Magdalene went there. And the other two Gospels say that multiple people went there. And then the angel kept talking, supposedly. And he says, and go quickly, and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and he is going before you into Galilee. And that wasn't true. There shall you see him. There you will see him. Yeah. So I wrote, he was not gone to Galilee. He was at the tomb, according to John. I discovered this. I've known this for so long now, and I've discovered a little more here on this study here. Like yesterday. He was at the tomb, according to John. And plus, he said he was ascending all the way to God first. Okay, he's going to go all the way to wherever God is located. That's why I put in parentheses, wherever that is, since we have no clue. We have no information whatsoever where he is, God. He's broadcasting from an unknown location. And I went on to say, before he was going to do anything else, in other words, he was going to ascend to God, because he said to Mary, don't touch me, I haven't ascended yet. And so he had to go to where God is located before he did anything, not to Galilee. So I wrote, so that supposed angel had no idea what was going on, really. That's why you can easily believe that that account is not true. It's been fabricated by somebody, by Matthew, or whoever put the book together of the Gospel of Matthew. So here's the John account. Here's the John account. John 20, 11 through 17. But Mary stood outside the tomb weeping. This isn't the whole account. There's several more verses. The first verse in this chapter says that she went to the tomb alone, which is not the same as the other Gospels. So, but she stood outside the tomb weeping, and as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the tomb. Okay? Because when she got there, the stone was already gone, it says. And she saw two angels. This time she saw, well, in this account, she saw two angels, not one angel, in white, who were sitting, one at the head, where Jesus' head supposedly was, and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had been laid. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "Because they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." Verse 14. And after saying these things, she turned around and saw Jesus standing. But did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" So the angels didn't even answer her, I noticed. But I suppose they answered her and that Jesus took over at that point. "Whom are you seeking?" Thinking that he was the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him off, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary!" And supposedly she recognized him at that point. And she said to him in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. So she recognized him. In verse 17, Jesus said to her, "Do not touch me, because I have not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and tell them that I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and my God and your God." See, he called God his God. He didn't say my partner, my partner in the Godship, in the Godhead. No. His God was his God. That would mean he created him. So he wasn't going to Galilee. He wasn't on his way to Galilee. He was on his way to the location of God. And then the last verses that I have here, verses 17 and 20, same chapter. And when they saw him, they worshipped him. How'd that happen? What did they do? But some doubted. How could you do that? Worship and doubt at the same time. So I wrote, he was right there. What was to doubt? So that makes no sense. I think I may have said that in the Luke expose. It doesn't make any sense. If he was right there, there's no possibility of doubt. If he was right there, They wondered how he could be right there, since pretty much everybody dies and they don't come back again on their own. Nobody. Verse 20, teaching them to observe all things, whatever I have commanded you, and I am with you always, even to the end of the world. Which he thought was in 38 years. Amen. So I wrote under there another verse where Jesus is affirming, affirming to the disciples. Looks like I left out some words here. That he would be alive at the supposed end of the world. Sure, because he was saying, you're all going to be alive and I'm going to be with you right to the end of the world. Well, people that die go into another world. If they die, then in some other realm, some other world. It's not this world. No. So he really believed that he was going to be coming back in their lifetime.